This guy's greatest gift for the laziness of his very soul was for his mother to die. Because now he has something to blame everything on. It's always somebody else's fault. It's because mother died. It's because I don't have mummy. If mummy was here, I could be a different person. If Pa was a different person. If the media wasn't always after me. You know, if the teachers at Eton had been more understanding. If. What if you stopped being an idiot and tried for 5 seconds? What about that? So he starts out this section. Remember, last time we left off, there had just been cocaine accusations. And he thought that he had gotten out of that, he'd wiggled out of that by denying it, and then, you know, the story was, didn't go to press. But now, and he was glad about that because it was about to be the Golden Jubilee. And so he did not want to overshadow this event with his failings. So he was relieved. Then he starts talking about the Golden Jubilee. And it's just a strange passage, and it's so typical of him. Because he starts out and he's talking about a family member. Who might that family member be? The Queen herself. And he'll say something that seems positive. And you're reading along, and then it gets like kind of hateful and negative and judgmental and like complaining just to complain. And then he'll end it by being like, but she's great. It's like, that doesn't work. You think we didn't hear all the stuff in the middle? You just finished saying that she was cold as ice. She would never give you a hug. She'd never even hugged your dad once. He keeps blaming her for acting in certain ways as a mother. That it's like culture dictated that she do certain things as the queen. That she had to go away. She had to go and do these royal duties. And yes, unfortunately, that meant that she couldn't be Mother of the Year. Sorry, she was a little busy being the queen. You know, it's not like there weren't 1,000 nannies to watch the kids. And I know there's no replacement for your mother. And but Harry just, I just don't believe him when he says that the Queen Elizabeth never hugged her children. What kind of a mother would not hug their children? I mean, it's just a natural outpouring of motherly love to embrace your children. She didn't like give birth to these kids and then, you know, throw them the nanny and be like, oh, you got that one? Okay, good. I'm out. I mean, if that's how she felt, she wouldn't have gone on to have 2 more kids. You know what I'm saying? She had 4 kids and they were pretty spaced out. If she just hated the whole idea of being a mom, why would she have done that? That didn't even make sense. Anyway, to get into specifics, he starts talking about the Jubilee. And, you know, he's talking lots about what it was like and the golden carriage, and it was all very fancy and everybody was excited. And, you know, he said that even the grumpiest anti-monarchs couldn't help but feel goosebumps at the pomp and circumstance of the whole thing. Okay, well, I guess Meghan wasn't in attendance there because she would have brought it down real quick. And then he says, he always says these things, just as an aside. He always says things like, there was a luncheon that day, I think, and a dinner party. You think? Why don't you look it up? I mean, your whole life is on record. You can't, why put in a detail that there was a lunch, I think? That doesn't help us. Editor. You guys, I don't care. I've had people in the comments saying, well, what do you know? Everybody says this is a super well-written book. Well, I'm here to say it's not. This sentence right here, there was a luncheon that day, I think, and a dinner party. Unnecessary. If you don't know, look it up. And if you can't find the answer, cut the sentence. Okay, so then he goes talking about how it's all just sort of a little bit like derogatory in a sense, because he's talking about how there were some big name performers there, one being Paul McCartney and the other one being Brian May. Everybody said how marvelous, many said. How miraculous that Granny should be so hip, so modern. She should allow, indeed relish all this modern rock. I don't know, there's just this whole sneering tone to it, you know? And then he's talking about how he was sitting right behind her and he saw her tapping her foot and swaying in time to the music and, you know, enjoying the whole thing and giving a display that she was relishing the whole performance and that she was enjoying the whole thing to the fullest. And he says how much he wishes he could give her a hug in that moment because he liked that she was so full of life and that she was, even though she's, you know, was quite on up in years, that she wasn't acting all just old and crusty and crotchety, but she was enjoying it. And he says that he wishes he could give her a hug, but then of course he remembered the story about Mummy and that time when Mummy tried to give her a hug and Granny had jumped and swerved to avoid contact. So cold. Oh, yes, but many people say that Diana didn't just go in for a hug. She lunged at the queen in a desperate attempt, I suppose, to get some physical contact. But anybody in their sane mind, if somebody who had already displayed to the world that they were not quite mentally stable time and time again had lunged at you, wouldn't you swerve? I'm telling you what. If I had lived in the house with Diana and she jumped at me, I'd have swerved too. This is the same woman who threw herself down the stairs when she was pregnant to get some attention. Okay, I got mixed feelings about Diana. But anyway, Granny swerved to avoid that hug, and Harry just says, you know, that's how she was. I mean, I wished I could give her a hug, but I'd never even actually do it because, I mean, you know, this woman left her kids for months on end to go on some world tours, and when she came back, all she gave her kids was a handshake. What a cold lizard. And it's just hard to understand why he's bringing this up in the context of being so proud to see her enjoying herself. Like, why are you saying this? Why are you saying this now? I wish I'd give her a hug, but since she's, you know, cold as a snake, I knew that was never going to happen. She and her husband, he was also just as cold as ice. Talk about aloof. That old geezer wouldn't even let you come near him. Not for anything. And then he ends it by saying that the concert was making him tired and he had a headache and he kind of just wanted to go home. And he wondered how Granny could still be so with it. And then he noticed, oh, what's that in her ears? Earplugs. So she's acting too. She's just acting like she's enjoying it, but she doesn't. And look at her. Look how she controls the situation. Look how she controls everything around her, even this. And then he ends it with, I really wanted to give her a hug now. I don't get that passage. Am I the dim-witted one? Am I dim-witted for not getting that? I read that and I think, well, you just finished insulting her. And you just finished saying that you didn't like how controlling everybody is all the time, controlling their emotions. Now she's found a way to control this situation where she probably was exhausted and the music probably wasn't to her taste. But she put in earplugs and she was brave and she made a good face of it anyway. And he adores that about her. So it's like, well, what do you despise her sense of control and her ability to, you know, what he would refer to as emotional rigidness? Or do you see that as a plus in the job that she has to have, and that she can just give the people what they need while still maintaining her sanity? I don't understand his feelings for her. It was a very confusing passage.